there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My Karen roommate keeps throwing away my perfectly good food. After that, am I the jerk for telling someone they're selfish for asking a 22-year-old to adopt their kid? And after that, sister-in-law demands I build a wheelchair ramp to my house for her son who doesn't even live here. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to eat a beetle. Hakuna Matata. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. What a wonderful phrase. My Karen roommate keeps throwing away my perfectly good food. My roommate, Tammy, and I are both on fairly limited budgets. I get a little help from my parents, so I have a little bit of a buffer in my income. I tend to make my meals for myself, where I will have leftovers so that I can skip making myself a lunch or a dinner later in the week. Tammy, on the other hand, makes each meal as precisely as she can, so she doesn't waste any money. Just two different ways of looking at meals, I guess. Just after Christmas last year, Tammy was very low on money and asked if she could please have some of my leftovers. I agreed. Instead of serving herself a small portion to see if she would even like my food, she just took a full portion. She ate about a quarter of what she took, and then she threw the rest in the trash. I didn't say anything at the time. Almost the exact same thing happened 2 weeks ago. This time, I asked her to please just try a little before she took a full portion. She said she was really hungry. Almost an entire meal in the trash again. 2 nights ago, she asked for my spaghetti. I said no. It isn't really going to affect me for her to throw away a meal, but it means she's wasting not just my money I spent on the food, but also my time I spent getting the ingredients and preparing it. She isn't talking to me now, but she is complaining to other people about me being cheap and letting her starve. I'm not. I actually gave her a box of generic mac and cheese for her to eat. I'm just not going to watch my hard work literally go in the garbage. She thinks I'm being a jerk because I won't share my food. I would share if she wasn't wasting it. Not the jerk. You tried to be kind and help her out when she was in need. Then she threw your help in the trash. She's the jerk. Plus, wow, you even gave her food she could make for herself. OP. It was just a 50-cent box of mac and cheese. I've had grown men thank me profusely over a 12-cent bag of ramen. It's the fact they don't have stomach pains until they can get to real food. Anyone that's had to suffer knows what I'm talking about. Not the jerk, she's wasting food and you're not her mother. You know you're not the jerk and Tammy knows you're not the jerk, but she's trying to manipulate you. By trying your food and then rejecting it, she's suggesting that you should offer her something else. What she wants is for you to start making what she prefers for the win. You buy it, prepare it, and she gets the food she likes, plus you paying for it. Make the food she doesn't like and eat your own leftovers. She's not gonna starve. Am I the jerk for telling someone they're selfish for asking a 22-year-old to adopt their kid? I'm 22, female. My boyfriend, Malcolm, who's 22, has a half-sister, Elena, who's 12. They have the same dad, and dad's not involved in their lives. Their moms became close friends, and they were raised seeing one another. Malcolm's mom moved abroad a couple of years ago. Elena's mom, Sandra, was diagnosed with cancer last year. She went through treatment, but it's still been determined that there's nothing they can do but make her comfortable. Sandra will pass sometime later this year. She has no family. Malcolm has spent a lot of time helping care for Elena, driving her to school, making her meals, etc. Recently, Malcolm sat me down. He said that Sandra asked to speak to him. She said she understood if the answer was no, but asked for him to take on custody of Elena sooner rather than later. That way she could adjust to him being her guardian before she passes. Malcolm would move in with them. Sandra had a sizable life insurance policy and an account to help him care for Elena. To my surprise, he agreed to all of this without even consulting me. I pointed this out, and he said, "We've only been together for 6 months." I asked, didn't he feel too young for all of this? He sort of said he did, but he'd do it for Elena. Without further discussion, he subleased his apartment and moved in with Sandra and Elena. Saturday, I stopped by to pick up Malcolm for lunch. He hadn't returned from work yet, so I was waiting with Sandra. We were making small talk. She mentioned how grateful she was for Malcolm and that he was a sweet boy. I asked if he was really her only option. I mentioned his mom. Sandra said Elena is losing enough. She doesn't want to force her to move abroad on top of everything. She also doesn't feel right asking Malcolm's mom to move back. I said I found the whole thing a little selfish. Malcolm is only 22. He shouldn't be tied down raising a kid. Sandra got defensive and said she wished she didn't have to ask him. Plus, he said yes. I asked, what else was he supposed to say? Sandra told me I was upsetting her and asked me to leave. Malcolm called me later screaming at me. He said that I really upset Sandra. I said I was trying to defend him and point out options she may not have thought of. Malcolm told me to butt out and to get on board with this or walk away. He hasn't spoken to me since. I saw Alina at the mall on Sunday and she just ignored me. My mom told me I messed up big time. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. I swear, if I see one not the jerk on this thread, I'll lose my faith in humanity. You should listen to your mother. Sounds like she's a smart woman. Malcolm got lucky. He just got a glimpse into your soul when you let your mask slip. It's twisted under there and cruel. Lucky for him, he saw that early on and hasn't spent years of his life with you. I'm genuinely confused why he hasn't made a clean break yet. Maybe he has and just can't be bothered to inform you. Wow, you're the jerk and soon to be single. You've only been dating this guy for 6 months. You had absolutely no right. Not the jerk. Honestly, don't waste your time with this loser. Any 22-year-old who agrees to basically adopt a kid is honestly just a lost cause. Sure, it's only been 6 months, but if he gave a single hoot about you, he would have talked to you about this beforehand. He's showing you that how you feel and what you think is completely unimportant to him. And if you stay with him, he's going to pick his bratty sister over you every time. Let this sucker go and find a real man who will respect you like the queen you are. Let your ex find some idiot who's willing to play mommy to a tween who's only going to cause nothing but trouble for the next 10 years at least. Then he'll be trying to spend every dime you have to put her through college. Everyone on here calling you the jerk are all just 100% virtue signaling. None of them would stay with a 22-year-old dude who adopts a 12-year-old. And if they did stay with him, it's because they're desperate and have no other options, which would be literally sad. But hey, that's most Redditors for you. I'm one of the rare people on here who's actually had my fair share of attractive boyfriends, and I don't watch anime or read manga. I actually go out and have fun with my friends, something most people on Reddit don't have. Oh man, you're mean. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I don't think anyone can compete with that last commenter on the jerk scale. Yeah, especially that last part about Redditors not having any friends. Ain't that right, Karen? Stop it, Reddit boy! Just stop it! Leave me alone! I was just agreeing with you. Sister-in-law demands I build a wheelchair ramp to my house for her son, who doesn't even live here. My wife and I recently bought a new house. After we closed on the house, my sister came to see it and asked when we would like her husband to install a ramp. The ramp is for her son, who's in a wheelchair. He and my other nieces and nephew used to come over to our old house all the time to hang out with our kids. My sister's husband, who works in construction, previously installed a ramp in our old house as well as my brother's house because he and my sister want their son to feel welcome in everyone's home. Our previous house was very standard and installing a ramp was easy. This new house, however, sits up high, which means it needs a very long ramp. After measuring according to specifications, we've realized we cannot install a ramp unless we get rid of some of our home's features. The front yard is a tiered garden. It's my wife's favorite feature as she's an avid gardener. We probably would not have bought this house if not for the garden, as we had our eye on another. If we built a ramp leading to the front door, it would cover the majority of the tiered garden. The only other option is the side door. We don't have a back door. The side door, however, leads directly onto the driveway that goes up alongside the house to the garage in the back. If we built a ramp in this area, it would make the driveway too narrow for many of our vehicles. We also have very limited parking on our street, so we would basically lose half of our driveway parking. I also wouldn't be able to get my old muscle car in the garage where I had planned on storing it. I've explained this to my sister, and she's unhappy about our reasonings, especially the one for our front door. She says that she gets the parking problem, but the garden is just a cosmetic thing and not worth making her son feel unwelcomed or like a second thought. Other family is also unhappy because now our house is unusable for family parties since nephew won't be able to come. We do family parties on a rotating system between me and my brother since we're the only ones with big enough homes. I said we could do the family parties out in the backyard in the summer. It's big and it has a lot of trees and a large canopy area where we can put some nice outside furniture and barbecue. Barbecue. The garage also has a bathroom that is accessible, So it shouldn't be a problem for nephew to come, so long as everyone hangs out outside. They think it's unreasonable because it will be too hot to stay outside the whole time and people will need air conditioning. If they go inside to cool down, nephew will feel left out. My brother also doesn't like that the burden is now on him to always host, especially since he will always have to host for Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are the most hectic holidays. Not the jerk. And there's plenty of room for compromise. When it's your turn to host, rent an accessible venue. Doesn't have to break the bank. It can be as simple as an Airbnb. Not the jerk. It's your home, not theirs. Yeah, his situation sucks, but why should you have to get rid of the garden you specifically chose this house for, or block your parking? They didn't pay for the house, and they don't live there. If they really want to visit, they can figure something out. If your brother-in-law works in construction, maybe he can build a temporary ramp that can be assembled and disassembled remotely quickly for get-togethers. Maybe it could be designed for the side door so the garden doesn't get trampled. Don't give up on a solution for both families. Not the jerk. The audacity. Should they have been involved in your house hunt then and chipped in? Unfair that this is always on you and your brother to host. Let's do it at their place since it must be accessible, or just get together and rent a place for must-do holidays. Am I the jerk for not getting more involved in my daughter's college fund situation? I have 2 kids, a daughter, Sam, who's 17, and a son, who's 19, and I always have made sure that their education is a top priority. My son is already off at school and doing very well, and Sam was accepted into her desired college school and program. My mom promised to pay for her entire education a long time ago, including tuition and accommodation. Everyone was overjoyed with this. However, after my divorce several years ago, Sam started to prioritize my ex-wife's family during every season. Sam decided to visit her mom's side of the family instead of spending time with mine. We always were told there's a lot more people there and the food is so much better. Can't argue with the fact that her extended family was there, but I don't think an hour with grandparents is asking too much. This all upset my mother and strained their relationship. 2 weeks ago, she called me to tell me that she would no longer be paying for Sam's education. She felt that Sam had put her own family second and didn't treat her like she mattered at all. I hate to say it, but I also can't argue with that. Since then, Sam has taken full view of what college is going to look like for her. She will likely need to rethink her dream school and major. On top of that, the loans will be an anchor in her life. She asked me to help, and I certainly will when I can. But when her mother and I divorced, she got all of the college accounts and used that to fund her house. This is old news, but I feel it's very relevant. While I feel bad for my daughter, I do not feel responsible for my mother's actions. She made the choice to stop supporting Sam's education, and I can't force her to change her mind. I've spoken to my mother and tried to reason with her, but she's firm in her decision. I've also told Sam that she brought this on herself for treating her grandmother less than the rest of her family. Sam is understandably upset and feels like she's being punished for wanting to spend time with her mom's side of the family. However, I believe that she's old enough to understand the consequences of her actions and make decisions for herself. As a parent, I've always taught my kids to take responsibility for their choices, and I feel that this situation is no different. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? Should I have gotten more involved? Edit. I think I'm done here. I'll be taking all you have had to say into account. I will speak to my mother and daughter once again, together as one unit. I will make sure Sam knows how her actions have consequences, and my mother as well, but perhaps neither of them are wrong. I want to point out how mean some of you are. I've lived in the States for many years now. It's not common for kids or parents to go no contact with each other. Many of you keep saying, "Don't be surprised when your kid no longer speaks to you." Is this really common in your lives? Because to me, that's unheard of. I talk to my kids often. You really need to get in touch with the outside world. This online place is good for a lot, but please remember that it is a controlled environment. It's not real. Others keep calling Sam a kid. I assume this is a cultural difference. To me, Sam is not a kid, and she hasn't been for a while. She's not an adult, but she's not a kid either. We expect people to be aware of their actions. We let 16-year-olds drive cars, which is very dangerous. 18-year-olds can join the military. And we leave 12-year-olds in charge of our toddlers for money. You need to really think of what age is to you. I guess that could be my culture though. I had to work when I was a kid to bring money in for food. Based on your post and various comments, I'm going to say not the jerk. There was a college fund in place for her that your ex-wife misused through no fault of your own, as giving it over to her was court-ordered. Your daughter was given warning that her grandmother was upset and was going to stop considering her family after repeatedly choosing your ex's family over yours, and even going so far as to let your ailing mother show up to pick her up for an agreed-upon outing, to her not being home and not going. Your son has continued to spend time with grandma and doesn't imply that your family is too boring to visit like your daughter has, so he has earned the privilege of your mother's gift. He put in the work to maintain the relationship and is being rewarded for it. She didn't. Your daughter is learning a very expensive lesson early in life that you can't take people for granted and still feel entitled to support from them. Even if she starts visiting grandma daily from now until graduation, your mother will know that she's only using her for the money now, so it won't mean as much. Your daughter has burned a bridge because she wasn't willing to sacrifice a few hours here and there to stay close with one of the few family members who is actually willing to pay a life-changing amount of money towards her future. It sounds like you tried to warn her multiple times while still giving her space to make decisions for herself, as she's been inching closer to adulthood, and she decided to ignore you and is now paying the price. She wanted to be treated like an adult to make her own decisions on who she visited, but now doesn't want to deal with the adult responsibilities for those choices. At this point, she needs to be asking her mother about the college fund she got in the divorce and how she plans to make up for it being gone now. Honestly, your mom sounds super toxic, getting so offended over the fact that a kid is spending more time at her other family's house that she's going against her promise to punish the kid. While there may not be much you can do about it, your mother being financially manipulative could be one reason your daughter is pulled away. Don't be expecting to have a great relationship with Sam going forward or for her to ever forgive her grandmother. It sounds like it's not spending more time. She spends every holiday with the other side of the family and even ghosted grandma on a planned outing. That's extremely rude. OMG, you ghosted me. Guess I'll just renege in my promise and possibly ruin your future. The idea that a 17-year-old, a teenager, should have the rug pulled out from under her last minute over this petty nonsense is baffling. It's not petty nonsense if you avoid all family gatherings and aren't present when grandma comes to pick you up for a planned outing. It's rude and disrespectful, especially when you're counting on grandma to pay for college. It's a very harsh lesson, but I don't blame grandma for getting fed up. The promise was reasonably contingent on having a grandparent-grandchild relationship. And if the grandkid chooses to not have that relationship, I don't think she's obliged to keep that promise. The daughter's future isn't ruined, but she's made her own path much harder. You're the jerk. Your daughter is 17. Not only did her family dynamic get flipped on its head, but both sides of her family are now fighting for her love and attention. Why wasn't there an effort to combine family time? She chose the other side of the family at every season. What does this even mean? Your mom promised to pay for her education a long time ago, which means that your 17-year-old daughter hasn't had to worry about saving money this whole time. If she had known this would have been the case earlier, she could have saved money, applied for scholarships, better loans, etc. By the sound of it, she's already been accepted and is preparing to go to college, meaning it's too late to receive any of the previously mentioned possible assistances. You and your mother have basically condemned your daughter to a life full of debt or a life spent unhappy in her profession, all because she hurt your feelings. Not only this, but her older brother has his college completely paid for, and I'm sure he's the golden child in your eyes by the way you described him. You don't think she notices that? You don't think she won't resent him for that? Resent you? Resent your mother? Is this hill you're dying on really worth losing an entire relationship with your daughter? Is your mother okay with ruining their relationship forever? You might have your feelings hurt, but she's still a kid. She doesn't understand complex situations like this, and you're doing nothing but abandoning her on the cusp of her life and career. I'm sorry, but you're the jerk. Do better, and gain some empathy for this kid that you're responsible for the health, success, and happiness of. Source: This was my dad when I was 17. I'm 23 now and don't have much of a relationship with my father. He took my actions when I was 16 to 17 as the complete and whole basis of my character and destroyed me mentally over who he thought I was. I was a kid. Give her a chance to experience life and form her own thoughts and opinions before you tear her life down and burn it in front of her. Edit. Feel free to downvote. I'm not trying to offend OP or say the girl's mom is blameless, just shedding light on the direct consequences of the path he's going down. Well, who do you think is the jerk? Grandma or her granddaughter? Please let us know. I know I sure wouldn't want to pay for someone's college education if they couldn't even be bothered to come visit me every now and then. Yes, you do have to pay your bill. Yesterday, I had my restaurant booked out for a private event with about 150 people, which was held during a big sports event. This doesn't happen very often, and it was only the second private event I've worked on. The first time was an absolute disaster, during which every member of staff cried at least once. Needless to say, we were hoping that this time everything would go a lot smoother. We were working on the information provided by the organizers, which we were led to believe had been communicated to the guests as well. The guests were given pink or gray lanyards, with the pink lanyard indicating that they were paying for drinks as they went, and the gray lanyard indicating that they had a prepaid package with free refills on beer, wines, and soft drinks. However, it's important to note that spirits were not included in the package. The event went super smoothly, with our team getting 2 courses out quickly, and the drinks were flying out of the bar at a rapid pace. We all did a fantastic job. The organizers told us to stop serving drinks at about 1:15 p.m., get the checks paid off, and get everyone ready to depart on their coaches to the game. This is where things started to get interesting. 3 of my 5 tables asked to talk to a manager when I told them that the beer was closed. I'm not sure why they thought the manager could do anything when we were working with the information provided by their organizers. Then one of my tables with gray lanyards got confused when I brought over the bill. One guy asked, "What's that?" I told him it was the bill and explained that the refills of beer were included in their package, but they had to pay for the several double vodkas that they had ordered. He asked, "Since when?" I told him that was the plan from the start because, well, it was. He was not pleased and started yelling at me, saying he had ordered the premium package and wasn't supposed to have to pay for anything. He called it a disgrace and demanded to speak to my manager. After a few minutes of explaining that we were working with the information provided by their organizers, he demanded that I go get someone in charge. Instead of going to my manager, who couldn't do anything, I went straight to the top and spoke to the main organizer. He went to speak to the table, then spoke to my manager. I have no idea what was said, but somehow the guy didn't end up having to pay for the spirits, and they were put on the organizer's tab instead. I understand the guy's perspective, but I'm not the person to be yelled at. In my opinion, it was a lack of organization and clarity on the organizer's part, not ours. Other than that, everything went well. I even received some decent tips, and we were told that we all did very well. I even got a special bottle of wine because I had managed to sell the most of a specific brand of beer we were pushing. However, that one guy did put a bit of a damper on things. Make sure his store is the first one you deliver to. Consider it done. After leaving active duty service, where I served on board a ship, all I wanted to do was drive. So in 1999, I got a job delivering meat in Southern California. It was a tough job dealing with traffic, and my schedule was always tight, with 16 to 20 deliveries each day to local markets. I was mostly given inner city routes with markets that had limited space for mid-sized delivery trucks. One of my weekly stops was a small market owned and run by a man whom I will call Ali. Ali was always scheduled to be my 5th or 6th stop and would complain to me every time I showed up that late, after 9 a.m. each time. He said he wanted to be the first delivery of the day. I told him I knew he opened each day after 8 a.m. on weekdays and that I started my route at about 6:15 a.m. Plus, I don't schedule my route, so if he wanted to make sure he was the first delivery of the day, he would have to call Steve, our delivery route supervisor. Ali did call Steve because the very next week I received special instructions that read, "Make sure Ali's Market is your first delivery of the day." I had my normal amounts of stop that day, about 18, and I knew they would all be pushed back at least 2 hours because I knew Ali wouldn't open until 8 a.m., and he wouldn't open the rear door until an hour later. The rear door was for deliveries and trash bin access. I began driving at my usual time, and I arrived at Ali's Market 15 minutes later, and the market was closed. I had my orders, and I made sure Ali's Market was the first one of the day, so I parked and I waited. At 8 a.m., Ali showed up, driving his old Benz around the back of my truck and parking it. He then walked inside through the back door. I waited for him to open the front, but he ignored me. He was busy pretending to supervise the cashier, intentionally ignoring me. So I walked to the meat counter on the back, and the guy there told me he wasn't allowed to take deliveries and that I had to wait for Mr. Ali. At this point, I could have gone to make 2 or 3 deliveries and then returned, but I had my very specific order. As I was walking towards the front to exit the market, I grabbed a newspaper, paid for it, and then told Ali, who was just standing there looking at me, "Let me know when you're ready to take your order. You know where I parked." Ali didn't say a word. He was apparently taking revenge for all those years for his small city market not being the #1 priority of a meat distributor who delivered beef, pork, chicken, cheese, and other refrigerated products from over 12 distribution points throughout the United States. Steve arrived at his desk right after 10 a.m., and the first thing he saw on his computer screen was an alert that my truck had been sitting inert for 4 hours. He called me in a rage, demanding that I explain to him why my truck had been sitting for all that time. I explained that I was following his order to make sure I delivered to Ali's market first. Steve hung up and called Ali. Whatever Steve told Ali made Ali get out of his little market and take delivery of his meat order, which consisted of about 14 boxes of product, if I recall correctly. I then began to rush through the rest of my stops, not wasting any time, and at the end of my day, I was the last driver back to the warehouse. I got an extra $80 on overtime because Ali cried for not being the first delivery of the day. I never returned to see Ali again. Apparently, we dropped his whiny self as a customer. Am I the jerk for pointing out hypocritical rules at my sister's wedding? My sister, 28, female, got married 1 week ago. I, 26, female, have a son who's 4, who is the only grandchild on my side of the family. Everyone loves him and he loves his aunt. During early wedding planning, my sister suggested that she wanted to have a child-free wedding, but I didn't think she was serious as it was so early on. Then when the invitations came out, I saw on the frequently asked questions page that this was, in fact, a child-free wedding. I talked to our mother about it and how I was shocked, but she stayed neutral and I didn't talk to anyone else about it. Now, I'm not one to start fights, so I obliged and found a babysitter. I was a bit upset, but I still tried to be supportive. The wedding day comes and my fiance and I take our seats and wait for the ceremony to start. While waiting, I see my cousin sit behind us with her 3-year-old daughter. I was shocked. It was made very clear to everyone about the no kids rule, so I was sure that my family, who adores my sister, would tell my cousin something. Instead, everyone said hi to them and talked about how cute their kid was. I was appalled and knew my sister would be upset. At the reception, I went up to my mom and asked her what she thought of my cousin bringing her kid. My mom said that it didn't matter that much and that we all should just let it go. But I was furious. How was this fair at all? At one point during the wedding, my cousin, sister, and I went to go take a photo at the photo booth area. After the photo, I turned to my cousin and jokingly said, "I guess child-free wedding means different things to different people." My cousin was shocked and looked at my sister, and my sister told me to knock it off and that everything was fine. I told her, why should I? I followed the rules and left my son at home. My sister told me to calm down, and I told her I was calm, just confused. I guess we drew attention from some of the other guests, and my mother came over and pulled me aside. She told me to stop causing a scene, and I said I'm not causing a scene, but simply asking why different rules apply to different people. My sister came over and told me to stop and that I was ruining her special day. I couldn't believe it. My fiance and I left because I could not stand to be in the same room as my sister then. Ever since the wedding, my mom has been telling me to apologize. I keep telling her that my sister should apologize to me. I haven't spoken to my sister since, and I don't plan on it until I get an apology. Am I the jerk? Edit. People keep saying that I should not have brought this up at the wedding, but when should I have brought it up? It seems worse to bring it up after the fact, doesn't it? Edit 2. Just to be clear, I originally wasn't mad at my sister. I was upset at my cousin and slightly upset at my family for not saying anything when they saw her kid. I didn't want a fight to happen, just for them to hold her accountable. However, I got upset at my sister when she got mad at me for bringing it up. I feel like I deserved to let my cousin know how I really felt, and I wanted my sister's support since I followed the rules. You want an apology because you weren't special enough at her wedding. If the bride didn't want to confront the cousin, you had absolutely no business saying anything, jokingly or not. Hint, you weren't joking. This is evident by the hissy fit that you are still throwing. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Your poor sister already had to deal with one guest ignoring her wishes and probably decided to just let it go and focus on enjoying her wedding day. I'm guessing the last thing she wanted to deal with was confronting your rude cousin and kick out a 3-year-old. There weren't different rules for different people. Your cousin just decided to ignore the rules, and your sister decided to make the best of an annoying situation. Instead of being empathetic and following your sister's lead, you decided to make it about you and your feelings and made a scene. You owe your sister and mom an apology. You're the jerk. Someone else broke the rules. You got upset and created a scene because you didn't also get to break the rules. None of that is on your sister. Karen ruined my son's car. I'm pressing charges. I'm 39, male, and my son, 17, Bryce, dated our neighbor Lana, who's 17, for a year. They broke up mid-January for reasons I don't know. I won't sugarcoat this. I never liked Lana. She always seemed a little unhinged, controlling and aggressive. She's always demanding Bryce's attention, and there were quite a few times when she showed up to our house out of nowhere, whether it was 7 a.m. or 11 p.m., because Bryce wasn't answering his phone, screaming and calling him a cheater when it wasn't even like that. The thought of our son being mistreated by his girlfriend made us worry so much. My wife and I tried to talk him out of that relationship. We said how it wasn't normal nor healthy. We didn't want to force the breakup because we feared Lana would lash out to him, so we tried to do it in a sneaky way. We don't know if it worked, but they ended up breaking up. He said that after he broke up with her, Lana didn't contact him, which was weird because he was expecting her to go nuts. But I told him that if fate didn't care, he better not tease it. Now, the problem is that we bought my son a car for Christmas. Nothing fancy, but enough to get him to school, his job, and eventually college. He parks it in our driveway outside our home. Ever since the month began, we had been finding scratches all over the car. We knew Lana was doing it, but since it was minimal, my son decided not to do anything, even if we could prove that it was her. We have cameras. Still, something smelled bad for me, so I decided to switch one of the cameras facing his car directly just in case. Well, 2 weeks ago, we got up and found my son's car covered in a lot of crap. Paint, glue, feathers, confetti. The door handles were wrecked. Flat tires, paint all over the windows. You get the picture. Bryce and my wife were so distraught. We called the police, and I handed them the security camera footage that showed Lana and her brother, 23 male, destroying my son's car. We pressed charges, and needless to say, Lana's brother went straight to jail. But since she's still a minor, her parents want to make a deal, but I refused. I don't think she should get a way out. Before the police were here, she was laughing her face off, and she tried to play it cool. If she thought this was funny, then she's old enough to face the consequences. My wife and I plan to stand our ground. They said they'll buy my son a better car and put Lana on therapy, but it is not enough. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is the wake-up call that she needs. This is also the wake-up call that her brother and her parents need. I can't picture my very much adult brothers helping me wreck my ex's car just because I'm bitter. They'd rather snitch to my parents and help me avoid getting time in jail than being the cool bro. Not the jerk. I could see the older brothers going along with it if she lied to them about why she was doing it. Revenge for cheating, for example. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.